Suho Kim wakes up in the world of a novel he had been reading before falling asleep and finds himself inhabiting the body of Lloyd Frontera, the hooligan. When his brother, Javier Azrahan, comes to fetch him, Lloyd's mother Marbella requests an apology from the bar owner for the havoc caused the previous night and the resulting damages. Surprisingly, Lloyd agrees, leaving both his mother and brother astonished, as such behavior is highly atypical for him. The next day, Suho, as Lloyd, goes to the local pub to apologize for the wreckage, but finds the bar owner visibly frightened by Lloyd's reputation and dismisses the need for an apology. On his way back, Suho devises a comprehensive plan to compensate for the damages incurred and, utilizing his civil engineering background, aims to generate a considerable profit as it will help his family pay back their debt and avoid his character's ill fate. Lloyd successfully secures his first construction order from the pub owner, but he uses his cunning nature to do so. Working tirelessly day and night to complete the project, his dedication surprises Javier, who suspects that Lloyd is plotting another scheme to deceive the pub owner. Intrigued by what this con might entail, Javier offers to assist his brother and impresses Lloyd with his swordsmanship skills. As the construction nears completion, Javier realizes that there is no con at play. Lloyd genuinely wants to help the pub owner and their elderly mother, who had been suffering from the cold. With Lloyd's ingenious insulated creation, she finds relief. Lloyd believes that his remarkable construction will attract more customers, yet the villagers remain wary of him. Caught off guard, Lloyd is interrupted by the sudden arrival of his father, Arcos Frontera. Lloyd faces a confrontational encounter with his father, who insists on handling the family's debt alone. He warns Lloyd against deceiving the villagers, but Lloyd assures him of his pure intentions and insists on helping, urging his father not to give up, as he won't either. Lloyd manages to secure a significant number of orders from the villagers. On his way out, he spots the moneylenders making their way towards his father's office. As Lloyd's RP, relationship points, with key players in this virtual world improve, he can gain skills using those points, reminiscent of a video game. Wondering how to utilize these points, a helpful pop-up message appears. Lloyd uses his RP points to acquire additional skills in design and surveying. He also learns about the possibility of summoning, but realizes he needs more RP points for that. Determined, Lloyd storms into his father's office alongside Javier, effectively frightening off the moneylenders by threatening them with severe consequences for trespassing. He hands his father the substantial sum of money he has collected. Lloyd goes to a remote location, finally accumulating enough RP points to activate the random summon game and meet his newfound companion, a hamster that, when fed a special seed, can grow to a towering height of 30 feet. Satisfied with this discovery, Lloyd realizes he no longer needs heavy machinery, but must now address the labor issue. To convert the lazy soldiers of the Frontera Baroni into motivated construction workers, Lloyd faces a challenge. Their lack of motivation becomes apparent as he assigns them tasks. However, while carrying out these assignments, he is confronted by Senior Knight Neumann. Lloyd recalls from the book that Neumann is a traitor who had sold crucial information to con men, leading to the Frontera family's significant debt. When Neumann forbids Lloyd from utilizing the army as mere construction workers, Lloyd decides to challenge him to a duel. Lloyd, recognizing his lack of skills to defeat the Senior Knight, asks Javier for assistance in preparing for the upcoming duel. In return, Lloyd offers to help Javier with his insomnia problem. Despite initially thinking that Lloyd will give up, Javier witnesses his unwavering determination and ultimately agrees to train him. Neumann, the Senior Knight, approaches the Baron and informs him of the disrespect he has faced from Lloyd. Disappointed in his son, the Baron allows Neumann to teach Lloyd a lesson, but specifically requests that no serious harm be inflicted. However, Neumann harbors much more sinister plans. After a month of intensive preparation, the duel commences. Javier, Bayern, Arcos, and Marbella Frontera serve as judges. The epic duel begins, and as the Baron and Baroness spot Lloyd wielding a shovel as his weapon, a momentary disappointment washes over them, assuming their son is just fooling around. But Javier steps in to assure them that Lloyd is serious about this fight. After witnessing Lloyd's unwavering determination, toiling away during the day on construction with the Ondol project, and training relentlessly with Javier at night. There's no denying that Lloyd means business. Neumann, on the other hand, finds the choice of a shovel as a weapon amusing and insulting. He charges forward to strike, only to be shocked time and time again as Lloyd dodges every attack. Frustration starts to consume Neumann, leading him to summon his mana heart. Javier starts to worry, realizing that defeating this senior knight would require years of practice to even stand a chance against his sheer strength. However, the plot takes an unexpected twist as Lloyd defies all expectations. Little did Neumann know, Lloyd had used his RP points wisely, gaining special shovel skills and learning the secrets of absorbing mana from the book. Armed with his newfound knowledge, Lloyd expertly blocks every strike from Neumann and launches a barrage of powerful attacks in return. Before anyone knows it, Lloyd's father declares Lloyd the victor of this thrilling duel. Javier reflects on the events leading up to the match. Lloyd had approached Javier, asking for his guidance in mastering the Asrahan core technique. This request catches Javier off guard, as he wonders how Lloyd even came to know about this technique. Initially hesitant, Javier informs Lloyd that he has yet to perfect the technique himself. However, Lloyd proposes a deal. If Javier teaches him the core technique, Lloyd will teach Javier how to perfect it in return. Although suspicious, Javier agrees and begins by sharing the knowledge behind his technique, before delving into the art of mana absorption. Lloyd takes his opportunity to expose Neumann's treachery towards their father, presenting Arcos with the incriminating letters exchanged between Neumann and the individual responsible for defrauding him in a real estate deal. Suggesting that Neumann should face a fitting punishment for his actions, Lloyd proposes dropping a vicious mouse on his head, offering him an opportunity to repent. Without hesitation, Lloyd feeds his magical bean to his hamster and hurls it towards Neumann. In a shocking turn of events, everyone watches as the colossal 30-foot hamster crushes Neumann. Lloyd Frontera begins the road construction project, successfully training the army men and assigning Bayern to supervise them. However, Javier grows suspicious about Lloyd's newfound knowledge of engineering and construction. Javier questions him, trying to uncover his true identity. However, any doubts are dispelled when Lloyd employs his special skill, stubborn insistence. Moving forward, they head to confront the real estate conman, Tordes, and his bodyguard. As Lloyd introduces himself, Tordes attempts to escape, but Javier apprehends him. A fight ensues between Javier and the bodyguard, but the bodyguard realizes he is no match and flees. Javier attempts to kill Tordes, but Lloyd steps in, intervening to prevent the act. Lloyd presents Tordes with a contract stating that he is to work for the Frontera family for 520 years, with 80% of his earnings going towards paying off the debt. Tordes finds the contract inhumane, but caves under Lloyd's threat to take him to court and reluctantly signs it. Upon returning, Lloyd posts a job listing for labor, worried his notorious reputation will deter anyone from applying. However, to his surprise, the villagers eagerly line up to apply. Javier informs Lloyd that his reputation has changed since he started building affordable ondols for the villagers and fulfilling his promises, as he is now seen as a trustworthy and talented man. One of the villagers then informs Lloyd that a relative from a neighboring land wants to place an order with him. This sparks an idea in Lloyd's mind, leading him to hatch a plan to mine for black coal in the nearby mountain, despite Javier's warning about the weak bedrock. However, Lloyd remains undeterred, as he has a plan in place. Lloyd Frontera considers how to approach the challenge of excavating the mountain. He decides to use the random summon game and summons Bangul, a small snake, who assists in the mining process with her chomping dirt skill, working alongside Javier's swordsmanship. After a significant amount of hard work, Lloyd finally uncovers the coal deposits. However, he notices movement from the other side and is suddenly attacked by a giant ant. Urging the soldiers to mobilize, Lloyd and Javier do their best to fend off the giant ants. The rest of the ant colony quickly joins the attack and swarms the group. In response, Lloyd devises a plan and instructs Javier to accompany him into the ant's nest. Javier bravely holds off the ants at the nest, while Lloyd searches for a pocket of methane gas. As Lloyd digs towards the methane, suddenly the gigantic queen ant appears and launches an attack. Lloyd asks Javier if he can withstand the queen's assault. Javier acknowledges it might be impossible, but realizes they have no other choice. he activates his mana heart and engages in a fierce battle with the Queen Ant, defending Lloyd. As Lloyd successfully uncovers the methane pocket, he and Javier hastily retreat towards the entrance. Lloyd tosses a torch back as they escape, igniting the methane and causing a powerful explosion that wipes out all the ants. The soldiers quickly inform Lloyd's father about the ant attack, prompting him to rush to his son's aid. Unfortunately, the explosion leaves Javier and Bangul unconscious. Furthermore, their remaining oxygen supply decreases due to the collapsed entrance. Lloyd starts digging to clear the debris, but he realizes he may need to devise another plan, or this could be the end for both him and Javier. When faced with limited options to escape the cave, Lloyd Frontera turns to the pop-up messenger and combines all his skills, creating the Azrahan Core technique. He invests all his RP into leveling up this technique, which unlocks the optional skills Energizer and Latent Power Surge, providing him with short bursts of unlimited energy. Using these newfound abilities, Lloyd manages to dig nearly the entire way out before running out of oxygen. Feeling defeated and without hope, he collapses on the ground. But just then, his loyal companion, Padong, the hamster, comes to his rescue and digs them out. Lloyd escapes the cave, carrying the unconscious Javier on his back. Shortly after, Arcos Frontera discovers them on the ground and brings them back to the estate. The villagers learn about Lloyd's tale of bravery and how he urged everyone to escape while fighting the ants alongside Javier. This garners further respect and admiration for Lloyd from the villagers. As a token of appreciation, Lloyd is greeted with a substantial amount of bonus RP upon waking up. Lloyd returns to the mine after 2 weeks to conduct a safety inspection. All of the workers are smitten by Lloyd's bravery. He and Javier venture deeper into the cave to ensure there are no more threats such as ant eggs. Javier is impressed by Lloyd's hands-on approach, as he could have delegated this task to the soldiers. During their exploration, they stumble upon the ants' food storage and find a captive orc named Arash. Lloyd tricks Arash into agreeing to supply 120 orcs for labor. A week later, they arrive at the village of the Sand and Steel tribe of wild orcs. Akush, the chief, rejects Lloyd's request for workers, explaining that they need to hunt 3 times a day to sustain their muscle mass. Javier suggests leaving, but Lloyd has a plan in mind. He proposes that he can help make their meat supplies last longer, which would enable them to lend him the workers he needs. Lloyd Frontera discovers that the orcs are obliviously utilizing valuable treasures as fitness tools. He strikes a deal with Akush, offering to build a silk bingo to keep their meat frozen in exchange for both labor and treasure. Lloyd confides in Javier about his visit to the orc village, revealing that he went there to recruit workers and secure their treasure. Leading Javier to a granite mountain, Lloyd explains that they need to mine granite for the construction. Realizing they lack the necessary equipment, Lloyd teaches Javier how to perform Mana Blast, as he recalled from the book, a technique that surprises Javier due to his suspicion of how Lloyd knows about it. Nevertheless, Javier agrees to try it, recognizing the mutual benefit. With Javier successfully slicing the granite using this method, Podong and the orcs work together to transport it. However, Lloyd becomes concerned when weeks pass without the return of the men he's sent to collect insulation. Suspecting the potential danger they might be in, he and Javier embark on a journey to find them. Lloyd Frontera and Javier Azrahan stumble upon Lupellin's dungeon, recalling from the book that a dark wizard named Lupellin resides there. Lloyd saves Javier from a magic booby trap and requests his assistance in using his mana to locate the other traps. Javier becomes increasingly suspicious as it seems as though Lloyd knows what is happening and what will happen in the future. They skillfully navigate past all the traps and finally confront Lupellin. To their horror, they discover that Lupellin had captured all of Lloyd's men and was subjecting them to twisted experiments. Just as Lupellin was about to strike, Javier and Lloyd burst into his lab. In an attempt to incapacitate them, Lupellin summons a wall and releases sleeping gas. Lloyd promptly activates his skills, creating a tunnel, while Javier remains unaffected by the sleeping gas due to his previous experiences with insomnia medications, which made him immune. They escape through the tunnel underneath the wall to reach the other side. Surprised by their escape, Lupellin conjures a ghoul made of steel. To Lloyd's astonishment, Javier effortlessly slices the ghoul in half using his powerful Mana Blast abilities. Lloyd had not seen Javier exude such great power, even in the books. Lloyd and Javier successfully rescue their men from Lupillin's clutches. The desperate sorcerer pleads for mercy and offers all of his sorcery tools to Lloyd. Inquiring about his actions with the soldiers, Lupillin explains that he was conducting experiments in an attempt to bring back his deceased wife and son. However, Lloyd interrupts him, reminding Lupillin that by taking lives, he has become no different from the man who murdered his own family. Surprisingly, Lloyd pardons Lupillin, fully aware that the sorcerer does not learn from mercy and will continue his dark practices. Utilizing this knowledge to his advantage, Lloyd turns his back to Lupillin, who seizes the opportunity to attack. Fortunately, Javier's quick thinking allows him to swiftly behead Lupillin, neutralizing the threat. Lloyd offers to carry the bags of all his soldiers on the way back, and they are all touched by his actions. However, trouble awaits him back at the village. Despite having built the Seok Bingo, he realizes that he doesn't have any ice, rendering the Seok Bingo useless. Arash wonders if Lloyd is bluffing, but decides to trust him, as he has proven himself trustworthy thus far. Lloyd confesses to Javier that he has no idea where to get ice, and they will have to get creative to find a solution. Lloyd sends Pipodong and Bangul to gather water and freeze it into blocks. He devises a clever technique to extract the warm mana, leaving only cold mana behind. With this method, he successfully creates ice and completes his project. The orcs are overjoyed by the fact that they won't have to hunt for food every day anymore, and Lloyd once again proves himself to Javier. Lloyd finally receives the 120 orc workers, and Akush is deeply moved by Lloyd's hard work. He declares the Steel Tribe and the Frontera family blood brothers. When the big, muscular orcs enter the village, the villagers are initially terrified. However, the story of Lloyd's bravery with the sorcerer has spread, earning him a significant number of RPs. While going through the sorcerer's book, Lloyd stumbles upon something marvelous and rushes to find Tortoise. He informs him that he doesn't have to serve 520 years after all, because he has discovered a spell that can transform a corpse into a ghoul under his control. Both Lloyd and Tortoise are overjoyed by this revelation. Tortoise is freed of his duties. As Lloyd walks into the reception area, he sees his father in a meeting with the moneylenders who are trying to persuade Arcos to give them the coal mine. Lloyd boldly approaches the moneylenders and asks them to decrease the payable amount and reduce the interest. The moneylenders are deeply offended by his offer and shout at Lloyd for his shameful offer. Just then, an orc walks in, ready to defend Lloyd. Fearing the orc, the moneylenders relent and accept Lloyd's offer. The orcs had increased their productivity by tenfold and were not asking for wages. However, they did demand to be properly fed, which posed a challenge for Lloyd and the villagers. Lloyd discusses the situation with his father, and they both agree that raising taxes at the moment would feel like robbing the villagers. However, Lloyd comes up with a clever plan to convert the Martis wetlands into farmland. This would allow the villagers to engage in farming activities and generate significant tax revenue. Lloyd dedicates 21 days to figuring out how to drain the wetlands. Eventually, he succeeds in devising a plan. To aid him in the process, he uses his accumulated RPs to summon a new helper named Hamang, a water-guzzling hippo. Lloyd initially perceived Hamang as a seemingly useless companion, which earned him disapproving looks from Podong and Bangul. However, Hamang soon reveals his true talents. He voraciously drinks immense water from the wetlands, leaving it dry and growing in size. Lloyd is left in shock while receiving smug looks from Podong and Bangul. With everyone now engaged, they start working together to convert the once empty wetlands into fertile farmland. Javier is genuinely impressed by Lloyd's ability to transform a wetland that had remained barren for centuries into arable land. They begin planting seeds and soon witness the fruits of their labor. However, their rejoicing is short-lived as a group of people on horseback suddenly approaches them. These individuals demand to meet the person responsible for the project. Lloyd steps forward to claim his leadership role, but the newcomers inform him that the land belongs to Viscount Lacuna, demanding that they immediately vacate the area. For centuries, the wasteland had remained untouched and divided administratively. The northern part belonged to Viscount Lacuna, and the southern part to Baron Frontera. When Viscount Lacona returned to reclaim his land, Lloyd knew he couldn't let him have it so easily. Lloyd informed Lacona about the kingdom's Land Act, which stated that if the land had been abandoned for hundreds of years, ownership would go to the person who developed and cultivated it through investment and capital, and had managed to cultivate the land with a crop. Lacona was left dumbfounded and returned home in a fit of fury. As summer came to an end, heavy rains arrived with the arrival of fall. Lloyd and Javier braved the rain to ensure their plan worked, and the water was successfully drained. Their construction project turned out to be a monumental achievement, leaving an indelible mark in the history of civil engineering on the Laurasia continent. Meanwhile, Viscount Lacone seethed with anger and remained determined to reclaim his precious land. He sent his administrator to fetch the supervisor of the dye workshop. However, when Lloyd and Javier woke up with excruciating headaches, they realized that there may be more to their pain than meets the eye. Lloyd discovers that Viscount Lacona has been polluting the water supply with dye, causing headaches for the people and animals. To reclaim his part of the wetlands, Lacona sends one of his men to blackmail Baron Frontera. The Baron initially considers taking the matter to court, but realizes that the legal process would take too long and cause significant damage in the meantime. The Baron refuses to give it back. At that moment, Lloyd enters the scene and continues to insult Lacona. Enraged, Lacona's man challenges Lloyd to a duel. Lloyd effortlessly emerges as the victor, leaving his father beaming with pride. Lloyd then shares his plan with Javier to build infrastructure and bring water from the lake in Capua, located in the eastern mountains. Javier expresses concern about the extensive labor and potential losses involved. However, Lloyd assures him that he intends to profit greatly from this project. Lloyd boldly travels to Viscount Lacona's land and offers his assistance. Lacona is taken aback when Lloyd reveals that he knows their dye workshops are crumbling. Lloyd admits to being responsible for the crumbling dye workshops. While constructing a bridge for their water supply, some limestone accidentally covered the valley floor, causing lime to contaminate the water that flowed into the workshops. The Viscount becomes furious and threatens legal action, but Lloyd remains unfazed by his threats. Javier warns Lloyd that the Viscount has influential connections that could pose challenges for the Frontera land, but Lloyd remains undeterred. A month later, the Viscount approaches Lloyd, begging for his help in saving the dye workshops. Realizing he would likely lose in court if he admitted intentional wrongdoing, Lloyd presents a contract to supply him with water at a substantial cost, which the Viscount reluctantly signs. The Baron is surprised to see the Viscount willing to pay such a high amount for water. Lloyd explains that with this money, they can not only pay back the interest, but also have funds left over. The Baron informs Lloyd that Count Cremo has expressed an interest in purchasing the treasure acquired from the orcs at a generous price. Lloyd is puzzled as to why the Count would be interested in such treasure when he could easily obtain similar items elsewhere. The Baron, plagued by self-doubt, recalls the events when the knight visited to blackmail him. He believes he has always been indecisive and incompetent. However, Javier reassures him, reminding him of the kindness and warmth he has shown. Javier recounts how the Baron took him in as a child during the brutal winters when his village was attacked and he lost his parents. Feeling touched, the Baron asks Javier to always protect his son, Lloyd. Seeking a restful night's sleep, Javier enters Lloyd's room. As they both slumber, an intruder enters through the window and attacks Lloyd. Alert and quick, Javier blocks the attack and captures the assailant, delivering him to the Viscount. Lloyd expresses his trust in Javier to protect him, having expected such an attack. Javier asks Lloyd why he had not been better prepared if he expected such an attack. Lloyd tells him that feels safe with Javier and always trusts him to protect him. He's a talented knight. Lloyd does not need to be vigilant under his protection. Through this experience, Javier realizes the significance of Lloyd's admiration and decides to let go of his grudges. Lloyd and Javier make their way to Cremo. However, upon their arrival, the Count mistakenly takes Javier for the Baron's son and offers him his daughter's hand in marriage, dismissing Lloyd in a rather rude manner. Once the Count realizes his error, they proceed with their discussion. The Count explains that their trade has been severely affected by the appearance of a mighty sea creature called the Gigateton, which scares off potential traders. The Count had come up with a plan to alleviate this issue by constructing a mermaid statue, as the Giga Titan is fearful of anything resembling a mermaid. Hence, the Count intended to purchase jewels to decorate the statue. However, the Count realizes that if they were to raise the seabed to accommodate the statue's placement, the water depth would no longer be sufficient for boats to navigate. Despite this setback, the Count is still willing to purchase the jewels to honor his commitment. Lloyd refuses to let the Count bear a loss. Confused, the Count listens as Lloyd lays out his proposal. Lloyd plans to sell the jewels at a high price, but he also offers to build the statue for the Count. While Javier and Lloyd are examining the seabed, a young woman approaches Lloyd. The young woman, Christine, happens to be Count Cremo's daughter. Mistaking Javier for Master Lloyd, she hands him a love letter, much to Lloyd's annoyance. Lloyd expresses his annoyance to Javier. At first, Javier does not understand why a simple act bothered Lloyd to such an extent, but then he makes an embarrassing discovery. Lloyd had never received a love letter. Count Cremo has managed to acquire most of the raw materials needed for Lloyd's cement production, except for volcanic ash, a crucial ingredient in Roman cement. The Count informs Lloyd that it may take up to 6 months to obtain the volcanic ash. Considering this setback, Lloyd decided to switch to Plan B and produce Portland cement instead. Although unsure of the precise mixing ratios, Lloyd remains determined to find the perfect ratio through a series of experiments. Despite multiple failed attempts, he refuses to give up, though it starts to frustrate him greatly. However, during his experiments, Podong, Bangul, and Hamang interrupt Lloyd, requesting him to take them for a walk. Frustrated and overwhelmed, Lloyd angrily yells at them, asking to be left alone to focus on his work. However, a flashback of Suho's beloved dog, the last remaining member of his family, dying, causes him to calm down. He then apologizes to his companions and agrees to take them for a walk. Lloyd expresses his gratitude to his companions, thanks them for always sticking by his side, and regrets having burdened them with excessive work. Touched by his sincerity, they are moved by his sentiment, which gains him RPs. Utilizing the acquired RPs, role points, Lloyd decides to upgrade Bangul, resulting in the convenient gain of a new power, Volcanic Blast. Thanks to Bangul's newly acquired power of the Volcanic Blast, Lloyd can overcome his cement dilemma. They tirelessly work day and night on the construction, aided by Javier and his loyal companions. Through their collective efforts, Lloyd successfully completed his project within the given time frame. Impressed by the progress and quality of the work, the Count expresses his admiration and promises Lloyd a generous reward. To commemorate the completion of the statue, the Count hosts a grand party to show his gratitude to Lloyd. However, just as the celebration is in full swing, the Giga Titan reappears. The massive creature spots the mermaid statue and charges toward it, driven by a sense of enmity and the desire to destroy the enemy. Javier senses a massive presence swiftly approaching the ship and urgently asks Lloyd to inform the Count to evacuate immediately. Following Javier's advice, the Count quickly gives the order to raise the anchors and move the ship away from the statue. As the crew scrambles to lift the anchor, Lloyd realizes that there isn't enough time. In a courageous act, Javier dives into the water and personally cuts the anchor to hasten the ship's retreat. Just as the vessels begin to move away from the statue, the Giga Titan launches a devastating attack, causing widespread destruction and leaving countless people stranded in the water. Lloyd, driven by his bravery and determination, instructs his loyal companions to assist the civilians in escaping to safety. To Javier's surprise, instead of helping the people, Lloyd is running away. Javier confronts Lloyd, expressing his disapproval of leaving the people in such a dangerous situation and fleeing instead. However, Lloyd remains resolute, explaining that their primary objective was to build the statue, not to face this unexpected threat. Disappointed in Lloyd's response, Javier decides to return to protect the people on his own. Javier hurls his mana blast at the Giga Titan, but to no avail. The creature remains unfazed by his attacks, leaving Javier with the realization that he cannot defeat it alone. Despite the impending danger and the possibility of sacrificing his own life, Javier is determined to buy enough time for all the people to escape. However, as the weight of his conscience finally catches up with him, Lloyd has a change of heart. He realizes that if the Gigatitan were to harm the people, it could delay or prevent his compensation. Fueled by frustration and anger, Lloyd heads back to the scene, determined to face the creature and protect his interests. Lloyd returns to the scene, determined to find a weakness in the Gigatitan. After closely analyzing the monster, he identifies the reason why Javier's attacks had no effect. Its tightly knit, thick armor was absorbing the blows. Lloyd then locates a vulnerable spot and directs Javier to cut off the creature's horn, which Javier skillfully accomplishes. Encouraged by their progress, Lloyd guides Javier to target another weak spot between the monster's legs. However, as Javier positions himself to strike, something shocking occurs. His swords suddenly fly out of his hands, crashing to the floor. This unexpected turn of events leaves Lloyd in a state of frenzy and shock as he witnesses the loss of Javier's weapons.
Hey viewers, subscribe for more quality content.